Well, thanks for doing this. It's
Bet.
been very informative, a lot of really good interviews, and um, um, let our grassroots know what your position on life, on the right to life is, how that position has been shaped over time, and what specific experience you have in advancing that view.
Sure. Well, I believe that we all have to live mission-driven lives. Certainly, I think we all try to, at least I hope so. I think we all can fall short, but I think that we ought to live every day pleasing to God. I'm a 100% Psalm 139 pro-life Republican. I support our Republican platform, which I think is rock solid on the issue of abortion. I believe that life begins absolutely at the time of conception. So every question after that, if you believe that life absolutely begins at conception, as I do, then you believe that the Declaration of Independence, the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause protects that independent human life. So if we start there, then every single question after that is really easy. And that's where I start when I think about the issue of abortion. So that's first of all. Second of all, I think my Christian faith is the foundation of my view on the issue of abortion. I believe that my opinion and view of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution shapes my opinion on the issue of abortion. I was involved in a CareNet crisis pregnancy center in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Helped them also get implemented in a town called Racine, Wisconsin, all in the southeastern area of Wisconsin, which I think is a great place and a safe harbor for women facing difficult situations where pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, food, diapers, and also an opportunity to share the love of Christ with people who are in real trouble and in making some tough decisions. So that's it in a nutshell. It's kind of a long answer, but I think
That's what we're
today,
looking
yeah,
for, what's in there and what you've done. So
yeah,
thank you. That's
absolutely,
a
and that's
beautiful
what's in my
answer.
heart. And certainly, I would never turn my back on that belief.
Well, thank you. That's a beautiful answer, and it leads to the next question, which is the walking the walk portion of it as RNC chair. Uh, as chairman, what specifically would you do differently than current and past administrations when it comes to the issues of life? Will you highlight this issue in political advertising and in the institution of the RNC?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's a core principle of mine. Like I just said, I think it's something that's woven in my heart. It's something that I believe that as a person of faith that I have an obligation to just on that basis, let alone being in a position of some authority, at least within the party. I think I've demonstrated that as chairman of the state of Wisconsin. If you look at our resolutions and our platform, we're very clear on our position of life. Personally, I believe that if I was to be elected chairman of the RNC, that would be something that I'd have an even bigger obligation to uphold the position that I have on abortion, and I think that I would be a huge disappointment to God if I didn't. And I think that that's something that I hope that I can portray in this interview that motivates me, and that I believe that with bigger responsibility comes a bigger obligation, and I think that's true for all of us in life.
Have you found that in your position now and just projecting to here in Washington in the national chairmanship that there are, concrete ways that to involve grassroots pro-lifers in campaigns and resources that could be put behind that type of activity?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly I would be, I think I've signed the SBA petition, and I think that there are ways that we can be helpful at the national party with the SBA and other right-to-life groups and defensive marriage groups, certainly in legal ways under the Federal Election Commission rules and
Yes.
regulations, of course. But no, I think that social issues that are the fabric of our society, and that I think that for us not to be involved with those issues causes us to turn our back on what I think is the foundation of America. And I'd be, I think, remiss not to be helpful in those endeavors, and I would strive to do that as chairman of the Republican National Committee as well.
That's wonderful. I have one more question.
Sure.
It's very specific, and you'll understand the reasoning behind it.
Okay.
Have you ever given a contribution to or bundled candidate contributions through a pro-choice group such as Wishlist or Planned Parenthood?
No, absolutely. Never have. I oppose using federal money to assist any of those groups. I oppose the provision that allows insurance companies and pools to use federal tax dollars to go towards elective abortion. So never given to those organizations, and I also would oppose the federal tax dollars being used for those as well, and I've never given to candidates that are pro-choice either.
No, that's the right answer. Thank you. You know, Susan B. Anthony List was founded on the opposite version of the machine, so thank you very much. They're beautiful answers, and now Maggie's stepping up on marriage.
You bet. Thank you.
So here's my first question. You're elected chairman of the RNC. Of course, you're out in the country raising money, working with donors, but you're also here in D.C. on the inside of a lot of these insider conversations. And one of our more, we won't name any names, but one of our more libertarian brothers in the GOP comes up to you and says, why should we be involved in this marriage issue at all, right? What's your best case? You got 2 minutes, or less, 30 seconds. What's the case you make for why this is an important issue?
It's an important issue because I believe that marriage is a gift from God, and the sanctity of marriage ought to be protected. And there are certain legal definitions that are not just legal and not just protected by our Constitution, but they're also protected by the sanctity of marriage given to us by God. And I don't believe that the comity clause in the Constitution allows for activist judges to redefine what marriage is. I believe that that's why a majority of states certainly agree that marriage needs to be between one man and one woman. That's what we've done in Wisconsin. I was a part of that. I was helpful to make sure that that happened. I was helpful to our Attorney General to make sure that that's happened. I believe it's important. I believe the Defense of Marriage Act is important. And I think that it's something that certainly as chairman of the Republican National Committee, we ought to be committed to. Our platform is strong in that area. I think if anyone reads our platform on marriage, certainly I think that the Republican Party has hit on all cylinders on that issue, and I have no beef with any part of that platform that's set forth within the Republican National Committee.
I just want to clarify, when you said comity clause, I heard comedy clause. I was wondering, but just for
I'm sorry.
Google
better way to
clause, not comedy.
It's also called the full faith and credit clause.
Yeah. Thank you. So he follows up and he says, "What's the harm of gay marriage?" What's your short answer?
Well, I think because I think it's defined because I think marriage is defined to be between one man and one woman, and the harm is I think that children are better off with a mom and a dad. I certainly admire single parents. I know it's tough, but at the end of the day, I think a mom and a dad are important to a child's life. I mean, I have 2 kids, and I think both my wife and I provide different types of nurturing to our children. I think that's really important. I think that's what God intended, and that's what I believe, and that's what I would adhere to if I were to be chairman of the National Party. That's what I've adhered to as chairman of the chairman of the Republican Party of Wisconsin.
Well, thank you. And of course, Wisconsin did pass a marriage amendment in 2006 by 60 to 40% margin. So you're probably very aware. One of the things we're struck by is because our victories aren't kind of relayed or magnified in the press, even on Fox News, many, even insider politicians, seem to be unaware of the unbroken string of victories on the marriage issue, that more than 80% of Republicans strongly support the current definition of marriage. The last election cycle saw the beginning of an emergence of a kind of pro-gay marriage, fiscally conservative candidacies, Dee Dee Scozzafava, Bill Binney, Tom Campbell, and they were all soundly rejected by the GOP primary voters. And, you know, not only in red states, but in relatively blue or purplish states like Wisconsin and Maine and California, voters again and again reject same-sex marriage. But there seems to be a sense in Washington that what we hear from candidates is the RNC or other organizations like that are actively discouraging candidates from making their position on marriage known, of mentioning it on the website. And we do understand that this is not going to be the top line issue. We're not asking people to make this their biggest advertising budget. But it is striking, given its unbroken record of success, how many Republican candidates are just not making a distinction clear. And I'm wondering whether you at the RNC would, whether you would continue that policy, or whether you would encourage candidates in many places to draw a distinction on the marriage issue and make it part of their package.
Well, I don't think that that's actually part of a policy at the RNC at all, but I think individual candidates make choices and what they think is going to move voters. But personally, certainly if it's an issue that a candidate feels strongly about, or if it's an issue that voters want to know about, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't state your position. You're right, a majority of states, overwhelming majority of states have already passed these amendments because that's what people want. I'm sitting here in Wisconsin. I can guarantee you that even though many times we're a blue state, in fact we flipped almost everything red this past year, but
a lot of those formerly blue states did,
right.
Yes.
But, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But the people here believe that marriage ought to be between one man and one woman. I mean, we had to go through a constitutional amendment to say that, even though our current law was that marriage was between a husband and a wife. But we were fighting over what a husband and wife was, so we had to pass an amendment to say it was a man and a woman. I mean, these are the fights that are going on in America. And I think the bigger issue here isn't really what individual candidates want to do. I think our bigger challenge is we've got courts that are out of control. We've got judges that are legislating. We have judges in different states that want to use that full faith and credit clause to impose their will on the rest of the country, and that's not what the founders of this country intended. That's certainly not what I think God intended, and it's certainly not what I individually believe and would intend to do if I were to be elected chairman of the party.
Well, thank you.